One bullet, one chamber, one pull of the trigger. The stakes, life or death. This isn't a movie scene, it's Russian roulette, the deadliest game ever created. For over a century, soldiers, criminals, and thrill-seekers have tested their luck against fate. Many didn't live to tell the tale. Those who did carried the scars forever. Russian roulette is terrifying in its simplicity. Load a revolver with a single bullet, spin the cylinder, press the cold steel to your head, and pull the trigger. If the chamber is empty, you breathe again. If not, the story ends instantly. Born from whispered tales in 19th century Russia, the game spread like wildfire. Soldiers, criminals, and even filmmakers turned it into legend. Some called it bravery, others called it madness, but everyone agreed it was shocking. Today, we uncover the deadly origins, the tragedies it caused, and why this chilling game became one of the most infamous symbols of reckless courage in history. The exact origins of Russian roulette remain uncertain, but most historians trace it to Tsarist Russia in the 1800s. At that time, dueling and displays of courage were part of military culture. Some officers allegedly loaded a single round into their revolvers, spun the chamber, and pulled the trigger to prove their fearlessness. The term Russian roulette was later coined in the early 20th century, combining Russia's reputation for harsh discipline with the randomness of a casino roulette wheel. Unlike gambling, however, the prize wasn't money, it was survival. Stories of officers testing fate spread through barracks and taverns. Some claimed victories, others never returned. By the 1930s, the game appeared in literature and folklore, cementing its reputation worldwide. The chilling formula was always the same: one bullet, one spin, and one irreversible choice. War amplified the legend of Russian roulette. Accounts from World War I and World War II describe soldiers playing in moments of boredom, trauma, or drunken bravado. For men surrounded by death daily, tempting fate with a revolver felt grimly fitting. The most infamous association came during the Vietnam War. Reports emerged of prisoners forced to play Russian roulette as psychological torture. The randomness wasn't just deadly, it shattered minds. The sound of an empty click became as terrifying as the crack of a bullet. In some cases, soldiers played willingly. Facing the constant shadow of death, the gamble felt like reclaiming control. But in reality, Russian roulette offered no control at all, only a cruel illusion. Away from the battlefield, Russian roulette seeped into the shadows of the criminal underworld. For gangsters, mobsters, and prison inmates, it became more than a deadly game. It was a brutal test of loyalty and courage. In some circles, refusing to play marked you as weak, while pulling the trigger, even once, won you twisted respect. The consequences, however, were tragically real. In 1976, a young man in New Jersey lost his life instantly during a drunken round with friends. In 1999, two Texas teenagers brought a revolver to a party, and only one walked away. Similar cases appeared across Europe and Asia, each leaving behind devastated families and sensational headlines. Law enforcement officers described it as one of the most senseless risks imaginable. No prize, no money, no purpose, only death waiting in the chamber. Yet the game's dark reputation continued to spread, fueled by fear, bravado, and whispered stories in bars, back alleys, and prison cells. For criminals, it became a badge of honor. For everyone else, it was proof of how recklessness can masquerade as courage. Hollywood burned Russian roulette into popular memory. The most iconic scene came in the 1978 movie The Deer Hunter, where Robert De Niro and Christopher Walken played prisoners forced into the game. The scene horrified audiences, showing the terror of waiting for a chamber to fire. That moment won Oscars and scarred viewers for decades. Music and literature also kept the legend alive. Songs used Russian roulette as a metaphor for heartbreak, addiction, or temptation. Novels depicted it as the ultimate symbol of reckless courage. Even video games referenced it, adding to its dark myth. But critics warned, glorifying Russian roulette risked imitation. After The Deer Hunter, reports surfaced of teenagers attempting it, with fatal results. Pop culture made Russian roulette unforgettable, but it also blurred the line between cinematic drama and deadly reality. Why would anyone risk their life with a revolver? Psychologists explain that Russian roulette represents the purest form of thrill-seeking. It compresses fear, adrenaline, and fatal risk into a single act. For soldiers, it became proof of courage under fire. For criminals, it demonstrated dominance over rivals. For thrill-seekers, it offered a high no drug could replicate. The human brain reacts intensely to the suspense. A racing heartbeat, tunnel vision, and a strange feeling of invincibility. Survivors often misinterpret that empty click as proof of strength, when in reality, it's just probability sparing them. Experts argue it's not bravery, but ego and despair that drive people to play. Each spin doesn't make someone stronger. It only brings them closer to tragedy. As reports of deaths mounted, governments and media across the world reacted with shock. In the United States, headlines in the 1980s and 1990s warned of teenagers dying after imitating movie scenes. Public campaigns urged parents to talk to their children, and schools began openly addressing the dangers of so-called game, like Russian roulette. Some countries even passed laws treating Russian roulette deaths as reckless homicide or assisted suicide, punishing anyone who encouraged it. Authorities stressed that survival was never a victory, it was pure chance. Despite the warnings, underground circles in prisons, gangs, and thrill-seeking groups kept the legend alive. Globally, Russian roulette transformed into something darker. Not a game, not a dare, but a cultural taboo, feared, forbidden, and unforgettable. Russian roulette endures because it reflects something dark in human nature, the obsession with tempting fate. It is more than a gamble. It is the ultimate confrontation with mortality. Unlike cards or dice, there's no bluffing, no second chance, just a bullet and probability. The game strips life down to its rawest form, survival or death. Modern internet challenges and extreme sports echo the same hunger for adrenaline, but none carry the finality of Russian roulette. It remains a chilling reminder of how far people will go to prove courage, and how easily pride becomes tragedy. It shocked the world not just because it was played, but because some still play it today. One bullet, one spin, one life hanging in the balance. Russian roulette has left behind broken families, ruined lives, and needless deaths. It never created winners, only survivors, and far too many victims. So was it courage, madness, or simply tragedy disguised as bravery? Tell us in the comments what you think. And if you want more shocking stories history tried to bury, hit subscribe. Because the darkest tales aren't always fiction. Sometimes they're more real than we want to believe.